Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, especially if you love college football as much as I do. And speaking of football teams, this is my favorite team in college football. Florida State University. Oh, I'm not going to go through the whole Tomahawk job. Y'all know how that goes. What do I expect from Florida State in 2023? A lot of people say this is a team that can make the college football playoff. I don't know about that, because the teams that they have to play, they got LSU at home, they got Clemson away, they got Florida away, they got Miami at home, but I know Miami's going to be a lot better football team. I don't know what to expect from Florida State this year. Offensively, amazing. Most explosive offensive team in the country. They put up points on everybody that they played, except NC State. But I know a lot of people didn't. But the problem, speaking of NC State, Florida State only played 3 ranked teams last year when they were actually ranked when they played them. They lost to all 3 of them back-to-back weeks. They lost to Wake Forest at home, they lost at NC State, and they lost to Clemson at home. They went 10-3. 2 games that really bothered me about FSU and the games that they won. The last 2 games of the season, they played Florida, and I get it's Florida, it's a rivalry. You don't really care how you won. It's important to win that game. Yeah, great, but you should also be able to blow out a team who's 6-6 and can't even beat Vanderbilt, especially when you're at home. If not blow them out, at least beat them by 2 scores. And then, speaking of a losing team, Oklahoma this past year was not very good. They were 6-6 going to the Cheez-It Bowl. You need to be able to beat a team like Oklahoma by more than just 3 points. Can Florida State step in the right direction in terms of defense? Absolutely, I think they can. They got a lot of great players coming in. Their recruiting class was pretty good again, and they had some great players coming through the transfer portals who I think are going to make an immediate impact. But let's talk about, in terms of overall record, I guess, what to expect from them, and then their tendencies. I expect Florida State's running game to be pretty darn good again. I expect it to be a little bit better. I expect Jordan Travis to be much more of a factor in the running game than what he was this past year. If you notice, he was able to drop back and throw a lot more than what he did in previous years. His offensive line blocked really good for him. I expect his offensive line to be just as good, if not better. The receiving game was pretty darn good, best it's ever been in a long time at Florida State. I expect that to be about the same, if not better. I expect Florida State's defense to really step up, though. Florida State's defense was the only problem last year. And not because they suck. They're a really good defense, but they were undersized, especially up front when they played against Clemson. Clemson's offensive line pushed them around pretty good bit. That's how Will Shipley was able to get over 100-something yards in that game. And when you can't control the line of scrimmage, you're probably not going to win the game, and that's why. Florida State, if they get bigger bodies up front on the defensive line and keep everything else the same, they'll be all right, in my opinion. They'll beat everybody, if not most everybody. The only game that really worries me, the 2 games that worry me the most if I'm a Florida State fan, are the Clemson game away and the Miami game home. Those games worry me. You can say whatever you want to say about what they did to Miami last year. That's great. But Miami's going to be 10 times better. And I think they're going to be very competitive in the ACC this year. And Van Dyke is coming back. I think he's going to have a really good junior year. He didn't have a good sophomore year, but he was also hurt most of that year, a lot of that year. So it is what it is. So we'll see what happens. But do I think Florida State's a team that can win the ACC? They can if they lose to Clemson in the first game, because now the ACC is different. Now it's about the 2 best ACC teams. It's not Atlantic and Coastal anymore. So that's good news for anybody in the ACC, really. I do think it just depends. If Florida State beats Clemson over there, I don't think Florida State's good enough to beat a team like Clemson twice. I don't think so. Who knows? It might be someone else besides Clemson going to the ACC championship. Or who knows? Florida State, God forbid, knock on wood, Florida State might not even make it. Who knows? I could be all wrong about this whole prediction. But I do expect Florida State to win at least 10 games again this year or more. I expect them to finish in the top 10 somewhere at least. And I expect Florida State to at least make the Orange Bowl. That's the least of my expectations for Florida State. I got to see spring practice and the spring game itself to where I could give a more, I guess, accurate prediction for what I expect out of Florida State. But again, I expect the offense to be about the same. I expect Jordan Travis to be a bigger factor in the run game than what he was in most of his games. He did run against Florida and Oklahoma a little bit, but for the most part, he was more of a passing quarterback. He was pretty darn good at it. I expect Florida State's defense to be 10 times better than what it was this past year. The pass defense was good, but the fact that they were undersized up front, that really hurt them in a lot of games, most specifically Florida, Oklahoma, and Clemson. They kind of got pushed around a little bit. But they're going to be a pretty darn good team. They're going to be one of the better teams in the country. I think no better than top 5, if I'm being honest, no less than top 10. But either way, Florida State's coming back. They're on the right track, and I think they're going to be great again this year. Mark my words.